everyone, welcome back. We're finally back. The Pokeballs podcast kicking off in 2024. It's been a little while. My name is Lee, for anyone new or that hasn't been here before. And I've got my co-host, as always, Scott. How are you doing, mate? It's great to be back behind it's not the desk, but the desks with you, mate.
The desks, oh, yes.
Your desk's my desk, kind of joined virtually. Feeling good, mate. How have you been?
Yes. Yeah, I've been good. I had some setbacks recently, but, you know, it's just life. So, life finds a way. So, I'm looking forward to the future. I've got some good holidays coming up. Got Utrecht coming up on Friday as well. So, always nice to go to Pokemon events in person. So, yeah, obviously, yesterday, we're recording this on the back of Pokemon Day, which was yesterday, the 27th of February, yes. Which we will dive straight into in 1 second, because we basically haven't spoken to each other about it yet, and I have a lot to say, and we wanted fresh opinions, because I tuned in for the stream yesterday. Lee streamed it over on his channel. It was great fun, but everyone it seemed was a bit over optimistic with what they wanted from Pokemon Presents, and in the end didn't really get what they wanted. But I think what we did get has potential. So I want to say one thing before we start.
Kick us off with it, mate.
I wrote a list. I've got the side.
Yeah, very exciting though. Yesterday it was obviously Pokemon Day. Nice to celebrate. But looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. So kick us into it today, mate.
So obviously, the big announcement, everyone was pretty much convinced we would either get a Let's Go Johto or a Black and White 3 remix. They had been teasing, and when I say teasing, proper teasing, that we were going to get some kind of Johto game on social media for a long time, especially this week and in the weeks leading up to Pokemon Day. And then obviously for a long time, people were like, well, we'll do a Black and White 3 remake. You know, that's next on the list of things to do. And we never got that. We got a very short present, which I was quite shocked by. I can't remember how insightful the presents have been in the past, but what we did get was the announcements of Pokemon Legends ZA, which was no one was expecting it, to be honest. No one was expecting a return to Kalos. Particularly, it seems they're going to stick. You've got the Kalos poster behind you, actually. I've just noticed.
I have, yeah. Just right there, yeah. Fitting. I haven't moved anything around. It's always been there. Yeah.
Coincidence, maybe you wished it into fruition. But no, apparently it's, again, most people know this, it's going to take place only in Lumio City, which again is another point of discussion, because I saw some interesting tweets yesterday. And then we got that tease at the end, and I'm not joking, I literally screamed when I saw the Mega logo after the teaser for the game, when the screen went black. I was like, oh my god, because I think the Megas is probably have been a fan favourite in terms of the gimmicks that they've done over the last 5 or 6 years. So I don't know the best way to, I'm just going to start speaking. So the biggest thing in my head, right? Yeah. Sarah B confirmed this, that it's going to be a main series game. Right. Now, what I'm wondering is it going to be, I understand in the past that Legends games have their own separate entity, right? They're their side thing that they do to fill the gap. Well, I say that we've only had one Legends game, so we don't know. To me, at least this is how I feel at the moment. This could easily be wrong, but now with the announcement of this game and the fact that it's not coming out this year, it makes me feel more like it's going to be like an ORAS rather than a standalone game. And I understand why most people would disagree with that. But in my head, why would they bring back Megas for a game isn't going to be played competitively.
I get where you're coming from. I think one of the easiest ways to kind of come back at you, if I'm just looking at this as like devil's advocate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No,
Yeah. I think
know
the
it's not.
easiest thing is megas are going to be there because we're in Kalos, right? Home of megas, where we first introduced them. So it makes sense, right? If we're going back to Kalos, it would feel odd almost if they take us back to Kalos and we don't get megas, right? But I do see your point as well. If this is something that they're wanting to go forward with the Legend series, is this is going to be another addition to the main series games that we're going to get, it maybe, like, you can't 100% sit here and say this won't be something that we're not going to see taken into maybe VG as a competitive game, and this is what we're going to play on for the next year until, or maybe next year and a half while we wait for Gen 6, because I think at this point in time, Gen 10, I think at this point in time, with when this will be released, say it's going to be like February, like the last, like end of January, February 2025, like the last Legends game was. It might not be, it might be later. Anytime in 2025, our best guess at the moment is it can be any time. But if it is released then, it takes us up to the point where Gen 10 is likely going to be released in 2026 for that 30th anniversary that a lot of us have been thinking would be the perfect year to do it, right? So it gives them time to then use this game as the main platform to play competitive on, like you say, like ORAS, like Hot Gold Soul Silver, like those super remakes that we've had in the past. So maybe the possibilities there. I'd be very excited with that. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for them to change the competitive scene in maybe some aspects where you couldn't do it with the kind of standard mainline series games that we get now. So I'd be excited to see that.
I just what I was just sitting there deliberating, right? Because with the fact that they've announced that it's coming out next year, it heavily links to the fact that, you know, there's a new console coming out, and it feels like this could be the launch game for the new console, right? Like, why else would they delay it, right? We've heard the rumors that the Switch 2, whatever you want to call it, has been pushed back a year, right? It just makes so much sense to launch it on the new Switch, and it also makes sense why they've been neglecting Scarlet and Violet, right? We didn't get anything. We didn't get a third DLC. We didn't get anything cool, really. We got more like Starter Terror Raids, which we said no one cares about anymore, right? And like,
I think you make some really good points.
It's just
odd to kind of look past.
Neglecting Scarlet and Violet makes so much sense now, because if this is a launch game for the new console, it has to be right. And back to people's point, when I say, oh, maybe this will be a mainline series game where you can play competitive, people were like, oh, but that changes the formula. Well, I think this is a changing formula. I think because
they're going to have to at some point as well.
That's what I mean, right?
Carry on like this,
And the new console release could be like the catalyst for that. I mean, maybe they plan to launch it at the end of the year, but it got pushed back. You know, there's no reason to say that they would 100% release Gen 10 in 2027, 2026, as much as people would love for it to happen. You know, realistically, the fact that we're getting, if it gives them more time to polish a Pokemon game, right? If we look at the problems we've had in the past with Pokemon games, you know, they deliberately didn't show any footage in the presents, right? Which makes me think they don't want to show anything until they know that it looks good. And so sorry, that's the best. The best outcome for me is the launch title for the new console, because that would make it more of a bigger deal rather than just being. Not saying that a Legends game isn't a big deal, but I feel like the fact that it's a Legends game that is also only taking place in a city, right? It's a very different. You know, PLA was across the region of Johto, right? Old school Johto. So, and there was Sinnoh. Yeah, sorry, Sinnoh. Yes, my bad. You know, and there's also been arguments being like, oh, well, you can't have a game based in one city. So, and then people were like, sorry, have you played like Final Fantasy or GTA? Like, it's just like, it's definitely a mix up.
on that point, I think Ace Trainer Liam put out a really brilliant. His tweets are normally really good at like shutting down all the complainers, and this one really hit chord for me because he said, I think it was like a line of something like, who said one area couldn't encapsulate a place where we can capture Pokemon or something like that, along the lines of that, and then had a picture of the terrarium, which is that circle, which is a huge area, and it's got so much diversity to it. So there's nothing to say. Just because it's in one area doesn't mean that area isn't absolutely enormous, huge, vast when we get into it, you know. So it's all like context based. Like,
they're not going to make a game where there's not enough content to do. Like,
it's not going to be Lumios City like we remember from the X and Y games. Like, I'd imagine, because it's a city, you know, it's not going to be a Pokemon game like we've got now, where in Scarlet and Violet we can't go into any buildings. I think we're going to be able to go into buildings. We're going to be able to go underground. Potentially, we're going to be able to go. You know, it's going to have so many different areas within it that it's going to be. It's good. Yeah, I don't think that's anything for us to worry about. I think people are panicking a bit, thinking we aren't going to get all these different areas like we're used to. I think, yeah, like you said, GTA, all these other games work because they're all in one area, but it's all relative to how big the game developers make the areas within this one area, you know?
Yeah, and I totally agree, and that's like where I feel like, you know, they're mixing up the formula, you know, to have a Pokemon game based in one like specific location. You know, they've never sort of really done that before. Like I said, the DLC is kind of like that, but you know, it's a DLC, so it doesn't really count. It's not a whole region. So I don't know. I walked away from that being a lot happier than I thought I would be. Like, if we had an announcement of Black and White 3 remake, which, as we alluded to, it will probably, there's a fair chance it could still come.
I think it'll be a faithful remake. I don't think it'll be
I agree. I
mean, it could be Black and White 3 a sequel and then port Black and White 1 and 2, but we'll get onto that in a minute. But I think, yeah, it's likely we might see something from Ilka or another developer that's taken on that kind of mantle of doing that for Game Freak. But I really like the point that, you know, you highlight. I think it's something we talked about in previous episodes, how it feels like Game Freak's attention just feels split. It doesn't feel like it's all of its eyes are not on Scarlet and Violet, and haven't been since its release, right? They take so much time to like implement any fixes, get anything new out, provide any real kind of value with the raids and things that they're doing, or the events. They're not bad, but they're not like as good as what they could be. When you're hyping something up to keep people's interest, pique the interest there, it's just not, it's not like it's there. It just feels like they've got their eye on something else, and it has felt like that for a little while. And I think with this announcement and what you're saying as well, I think it makes complete sense to be like, right, this is what they've been working on. This is what they are working on. And I think if we do see it, the only caveat to this being on the new Switch or the Switch successor is that they have stated on the release kind of overlay, the Switch icon, it will be on the Nintendo Switch. Now, whether or not it will run on the Nintendo Switch, and it is a Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever the successor is.
I don't think they're going to change the logo of the Nintendo Switch, because I think it's become so iconic. I feel like the console will be more
updated slightly, right?
Possibly,
to distinguish between 1 and 2, right?
But if they're not ready to announce the new console yet, which they haven't done any official announcements of it or teasers of it, then why would they just put it in the corner? You know, it just doesn't feel. I 100% agree with you, and I really hope that's not the case.
I just feel like it could, if they do release it, it could run on the original hardware.
Well, like
now, but it won't run as well as it has been developed for the successor, where it's going to run so much better. But it doesn't paywall those people to have to say, I have to buy the new console, right? I can play it on my original Switch. It's just not going to play as well. And there'll be maybe features and things that are only available on the new console. But it is aimed at that new console, but it's available on both. If you get what I mean. It's like one cart that is playable on the Switch, just not as a high performance, and then it plays so much better, and you've got all these extra features on the new console. I don't know if it's a launch title would make sense. I mean, we see it all the time, right? With PlayStation games, they release a PS5 game, but it's available for the PS4 as well, right? So there's no reason for them not to do that.
Yeah,
And I think it's very exciting, right? If they say this is the launch title for the new Switch system. I mean, we've talked about it, touted it for ages. We're not going to get a Zelda game. I think the big tell for us whether or not it's likely going to happen is, I think the 15th of March is Mario Day, right? And I think that would be when we probably, this is when I think we'll probably get an announcement of the new console. And if it is centered around a new Mario game, I think that's the day that they would do it. If we don't get anything then I think it's more likely that I think what you're saying might come to pass. Be very, very exciting. Be very good. Be very good.
I think it being backwards compatible on the original Switch would be good. I just don't know whether they would do that. Like, I mean, they've got the money, but maybe that's what they've been doing, splitting their resources. But I don't know. Most people, I don't think would want to play another Pokemon game on the Switch. That was my biggest fear with the Presents, is that we get another Pokemon game on the Switch. I know PLA ran well.
I don't think you can advertise it like that. It's like misadvertising, because it's like, you know, misinformation almost, because you're putting the Switch logo there. Like, if they have it in mind where it is just going to be on that new Switch console, then I think you just don't put a logo there at all. I think you just leave it and just let people assume and then confirm it at a later date when the new console's been released. I think that will lead to a lot of people being kind of angry, being like, you advertised this as being available on the Switch when you first announced it. Now I can't play it. Now I've got to spend like $400 to play this new game that I've been so excited for, invested in all this time in the run up to its release all year, you know? So I think it could leave a bit of a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths if that is the case. Whereas I think it's an easy fix where you say it is available on the Switch. It won't run as well as it does, but it is the release title for this new console. And if you buy it on the new console, you're going to have access to all of these additional features that you won't get on the Switch because it just can't perform at that higher rate that we need to run these features. And I think that's an easy fix. And I think a lot of people would be like, okay, I can't afford the new Switch right now, but I can get this game still and play it and still do all the things that I want to do in it. I just maybe won't have access to these things. I think that's an easy way for them to kind of cover bases and also kind of hit two markets at the same time, you know?
Yeah, no, I think in an ideal scenario that is probably the best outcome. I'm not sure if I entirely agree with you in the sense that I don't think it would be that big of a deal if they did put that logo there and it wasn't, if it is only exclusive to the new console.
Yeah,
I do agree that people would still moan because everyone, like fucking the community loves to moan. But I don't think it maybe would potentially be as bad as you described there. But I do think it would be a lot better if they had the compatibility to play on both. But there has to be a reason to buy the new console. You know, they have to make it. It would have to run better. It just entirely depends whether it is the launch title, right?
Yeah, I think that date in March will be a big tell, because it would make sense that we get a Mario game as the launch title for the Switch, you know, being almost Nintendo mascot. But then again, it feels like this is like, I think the wording, and I covered it in my video when I did like the detailed look at everything that we got. I think the ambitious new adventure or an ambitious new title in this Pokemon series, and I think the fact that they're wording it ambitious really implies the fact that this is going to be such a different Pokemon game to what we've had before, and for it to be a main series title game as well kind of could imply that we're going to see a lot of changes, especially the competitive format, which would be I think it's exciting. I think we have to embrace any changes that we get. It's not 100% comfortable,
no,
but it's like, change is always good, and you got to adapt with things. You can't just stay stuck in like where we are now for the foreseeable. As much as the format that we've got now is everyone likes, enjoys it, plays a competitive format, I think it has to evolve at some point to grow as an esport, which it is starting to really creep into now.
Yeah, look, people don't like change, right? And people, regardless of what they end up doing, people are going to moan about it. So I don't think that particularly matters. But in the sense that 100%, what you just said, the word ambitious there, this could be this could be the turning point for Pokemon, right? This could be the change. We haven't really had. I know we moved to open world, but felt like the transitions. There hasn't been a big shift in a Pokemon game. Like I said, they've tried stuff, and again, that's what makes me think. Okay, maybe PLA was a test. Maybe Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was a test. They're choosing the elements that they like. They did the Faithful remake. Did people like that? It wasn't as well received.
I think the one thing to look at from PLA in particular is the training mechanics in it, where they did away with EVs, IVs, and they just had a really easy system to be able to kind of max out your Pokemon's stats. They were based over 3 stats, right? And they had the new battling mechanics in there, the agile and the is it the strong and the agile style in those games, if I can remember rightly. Like, that was definitely a test. The training mechanics were a test. But I think with all of those things, it lifts the barrier to entry.
100%. 100%.
Because you can go and get a Pokemon and you can train it up as easy as that. It will take like literally minutes. So there's going to be no investing in it. And I think you can do that, have that side of it. And then there was no breeding in PLA. So maybe if it is a main series title, maybe they have a new way where, they implement maybe the picnic method into this new game. There's loads of things. Like you say, I think they're constantly doing stuff, testing things, which they're going to implement at a later date if it works out and they think it's the right thing to run with.
Yeah.
Exciting, man.
No, it is exciting because there is a lot of potential there, and that's what makes it really exciting. And like I said, a big change is going to pay a lot of people off, but you got to look at the big picture, right? A shift could be really good for the franchise. No, that's fine. No, that's all I was going to say.
The only thing I would say, like, to those people that are maybe scared of the change, like, and don't like maybe the new ways things are implemented, you're always going to have the older games that have all of the things that you love in. You can always go back and play the older games. And yeah, it might be not great that you're not going to get a new version of that kind of whatever you like from the old games, whether that's, shiny hunting, whether that's the breeding mechanics or anything like that, but you're always going to have those old games. They exist. You can always go back to them and play those and make the most of those games, especially if they start to port them onto maybe the Switch successor, which it looks like that's probably going to be the case now. But
again, maybe with the shift towards a completely new system, maybe that's what the remasters become about.
Yeah,
making an updated version of what we used to love, but there's rather than it being annoying that it's a faithful remake, people are like, oh my god, this is just a much better looking version of the game that I loved, but with the same mechanics I used to love, because now it's completely different.
Yeah, and I think those, like, the ways of training line up a lot more with like Pokemon Go in a lot of respects, because you look at the stats of Pokemon Go, it is like HP, defense, and attack, right? 3. So it's like almost lining up with that kind of facet, and that works really well. Like, look at the popularity of Pokemon Go. It's huge. Competitive scene is only in its infancy, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. So VG needs to try and keep up with that. It is above it at the minute, but that isn't always going to be the case. Like, Pokemon Go, if VG just stays stagnant, Pokemon Go is going to surpass it and go way beyond where it's like VG's capable of. So I think VG needs to adapt in a way, being like,
it needs to be the top dog, because that's what the whole franchise is based around, realistically.
Yeah,
the games.
You can't let like a Niantic run game from Pokemon overtake the main series titles, which drive everything else, right? We've talked about it before. Main series games, they drive everything in the franchise. They drive what the cards are, what the merchandise is, everything. The anime series, the movies, everything. It's all driven by what Game Freak produced. So it's a super important one. I think you can't overlook how important the competitive aspect is to grow that in regards to an advertising kind of machine for the whole thing as well. So yeah, but getting back to the point, mate, I think you make some really good points. I think if we do see this new game, it would make sense that we see it on the new Switch. Oh, it'd be so exciting, man. You've got me pumped for this now, right? So I think that could happen. I think it's a good possibility. I think you make some amazing points about how we could see this as maybe a title that we do finally see kind of take over from the competitive scene, change things up there. I think that's very exciting as well. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But getting back to your original point about the over expectations of the presents, I think I definitely fell into that trap. I mean, I'm just thinking about the bingo card that I did prior to
I watched you remove all the things that didn't get announced, and it was like 90% of the board was gone.
Yeah, it was like, so we had 25 options altogether, and I think I got six ticked off. So it was not very good. But I think the over expectation is just natural, the excitement of what we could potentially get. But yeah, I was very surprised we didn't get. Still, I'm surprised that we didn't get the Black and White remake announced. I'm pretty sure, and I'm still confident that we'll get an Ilka game this year.
I think it makes sense to fill the gap, particularly if we don't know the release date of. If we don't know what the release date is for, the new Pokemon game, the
and this
Legends
as well
thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it could all potentially line up properly, right? Say they just did Ilka, they just did the Black and White 3, whatever it is, the Black and White game. You know, they could potentially release it any time next year, and then there's you've then got at least a year until they do a Gen 10 if they do it in 2026 in November. You know, so you've got it fills a gap, so it will work out fine. They don't need to be released as close as BDSP and PLA did. So I think they probably just did that probably because they're they're the same region, right? So it kind of makes sense. But
another thing to think about, right? It's just got my cogs going here, but you know the whole rumored reason for the delay in the Switch being released, right, or announced, is due to the Xbox announcement, right?
I did not know that.
What happens if the Switch being put back this whole time? The Pokemon Legends game was what Nintendo wanted as the release title, and Game Freak have turned around and said, we need more time to get this game ready. And you know, Nintendo might be in a position where they're like, right, well, Zelda's off the cards, Animal Crossing not going to be something that we want to go ahead with, Mario is not even anywhere near going to be ready for like the next year or so, right?
It has to be a strong IP, right, to release with the game.
And Pokemon's been a very strong IP since it's a very strong IP.
It's an iconic brand.
Always. But on the Switch in particular, I think it's one of the strongest IPs on the Switch, by far. So I think that might be a reason why we've seen a delay to the Switch successor, and maybe why we've got this extra time with the development time for this game to come out. So it could all line up and make a lot of sense. All the get your tin hats on theories, but I think maybe there's stuff to look at, and you know, there's never smoke without fire. That's what I will say.
Yeah,
never know.
I think that's a very good point. I would love it if that is the reason. You know, they're finally thinking, okay, we need to take shit seriously now. You know, I hope that Scarlet and Violet was a wake-up call, and maybe that's why, you know, they potentially have made this decision. You know, it's hard to tell how powerful the new Switch console will be. It's always going to struggle as a handheld because you're limited to a lot of stuff. But
yeah,
I don't think
that might be why as well we've not had the announcement of a Black and White game. If Ilka are doing or in the throes of producing a Black and White remake, they might be saying, you know, like if you remember back to the release of BDSP, that was a mess. Like I was even talking about it on stream yesterday. I mean, like when BDSP launched, it didn't even have a title screen. You had to do a version 1.1 update.
It didn't.
Just get the title screen loading on it. So it's like, so I think like in a way they might be like, right, yeah, we do need to make sure that everything is working properly when we release this, so we don't have as much work to do later. We're not going to rush these now. So maybe that's why they haven't announced it either, to be like, give Ilka the room that they need to make sure that it is a polished game before it actually drops, to reduce the number of updates that we're going to have to see, these patches that they're having to do with every Pokemon game. You know, like Scarlet and Violet patches being ridiculous, BDSP patches that they had to do was ridiculous. Like it was a week on week.
Yeah, there were so many glitches, right, at the start of the game.
So it's like, okay, let's just make sure we take the time in the first place to do these games right. So maybe that's why we didn't get the announcement, and maybe that's why I'll push it further back, and they're not going to announce anything until they're in a place where they're like, okay, we're confident that on this date, in 4 or 5 months' time, this game's going to be ready. So, and we have plenty of Nintendo Directs in between now and, you know, November, if that's when it is going to release. And there's also going to be another Pokemon Presents, or 2 Pokemon Presents between now and November. So there's plenty of time. Plenty of time. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, exciting, but you know, we got to be patient if we want these things. You know, like I said, Pokemon, we've been quite spoiled with the release cycle of Pokemon games in the past, so you know, we kind of just have to accept it. Like I said, this game could be a big deal for Pokemon. You know, like I said, they need to get it right. You know, originally, you know, Breath of the Wild was meant to be a Wii U title, but then it released as a Switch 2 console. Maybe maybe this game was never meant to be on the new console, but they were like, okay, we need to shift. You know, they're like I said, they're losing a lot of market share in the handheld now. Like, Nintendo will always be Nintendo, and they'll always have that IP because they won't license their games to anyone else. They won't let you play it on Steam, they won't let you play it anywhere else. So they're always going to have the fact that you need to have a Nintendo console to play these games. But it doesn't mean that they're losing out on market share to other handhelds now. There's so many on the market with this. The Steam Deck's so popular. You've got things like the Ioneer, you've got the ROG Ally, there are so many different. There's so much competition now, and you know, they've got to step up their game. And I think, you know, if we look at the other announcements which we got for the TCG Pocket game, what you said earlier about making the mainline series games more accessible, you know, that's a classic example of them. Okay, how can we make TCG a mobile app that's really accessible? Okay, we'll give people free pack every day. We'll make a much simpler 2 free packs every day.
Yeah.
And we'll make a much more simplified battle mode, you know, and then you have the option. You know, if you wanna try out TCG properly, you can go and play on the TCGO.
Which I was like so surprised about, because we've just had like TCG Live kind of. What did that launch last year? And take the place of like TCG Online. Was that what it was called before? It's been recent that TCG Live's like become this new thing with a platform. It isn't as good. I've played around with it a little bit. And yeah, you can't open packs on it or anything like that. You
Not
can
fun.
put the codes in,
But it's just
automatic, so
I think it would make me just want to have the app just open, get that pack, you know, that package out of the way every day. Just be like, whoop. They're not real cards, but who cares?
Yeah, they got that like interactive. Like, into the cards. I think that's a cool little feature, and like just simplifying it and making it more accessible to everyone. I think, it makes it a bit more like a Pokemon Go app, which is more accessible, which is more successful. So, if Game Freak are taking pointers and lessons from what Niantic have done, I think that's a really good positive thing to go forward with. So I think it's all looking positive, mate. Obviously there's lots of questions with the new Pokemon game, of course. Like, I think like we can make assumptions on what it'll be like, but I think.
Okay, do you think, right, because there was quite a heated debate yesterday on Twitter, do you think it will be in the past or future?
I think it will be I think it'll be past, because I think well, it's so hard to say for definite, right?
Oh no, obviously, but I'm just curious to what you think.
I think it will be in the past, because I think it will. It's a rebuild. It's a redevelopment of Lumios, right? So in my mind, at least, those architectural plans are showing what the city can be to create this kind of ecosystem where Pokemon and people live together in this place.
Before it became what we know it as, basically.
Well, yeah, because I think when we got to Lumios in X and Y, right?
There's that
Pokemon
blocked off area,
already.
Isn't there, as well? Do you remember there's like that area you can't go down for ages because they're like, we're doing building work.
Yeah, so it could be.
But I don't know. That was just.
Can you get down there eventually? I think you
possibly.
Can
you can, but
I think that opens up. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I want to play X and Y again now.
well, that's what I was
Just
saying. It
remind
could be a
myself.
good thing to play on stream.
Yeah, it'd be fun. But yeah, I think it'd probably be set in the past because I think that whole trailer to me was the showcasing of architectural plans of this project, right? And it starts off with the confidential documentation, and then it goes into almost like a 3D modeling vision of what this architectural vision will be, right? To give you a bit of a better perspective on what it is. And that's all I think it was. And just a few hints, sprinkling of hints here and there, some Pokemon that are going to be in it to identify that it is Lumiose City and things. So I don't know.
I think it's hard because they started off with like what looked like hand drawn architectural drawings with like the French buildings, and it like switched immediately to like, oh, here's like futuristic blue lines making it look like a but yeah, it could either be the making of Lumiose City as we currently know it, or it could be a redevelopment of what it already is. It would probably be, as it's a Legends game, it probably will be the past, most likely, but who knows? Again, they threw a massive curveball with this, so this could literally be anything, and they could have deliberately only shown us what they want us to think, just to stir up, because it definitely stirred up so much stuff yesterday, man. Like,
the crazy theory I had with it was, the title itself, it's so simple, like it's Z to A, right? Which is, it's normally A to Z, right? So they flipped it around, right? So in my mind, I was thinking, well, how could that make sense in a lot of ways, right? If you're flipping it around, do you almost start the game at the end, and then you go back
in the past,
and you go back and you kind of make your way backwards through a game almost, like, so you're starting at the end point, which would be the present.
That'd be really hard to visualize.
It's very hard to kind of get your mind around, right? But you're starting in the present, right? Which is the end point, which was where you're aiming to get to. And then in the game, you suddenly flip back, time travel or something.
It's like a flashback or something.
Yeah, or something happens where, it could be something to do with Terrapagos. There could be links with the Gen 9 games in there, because I think there might be links there. And then you go back to what am I saying? You start at the end and end at the start. That's basically what it is. So you would time travel in there. I don't know. It could be all over the place.
I do find it so weird that they just went for Kalos. It just seems like it just doesn't, like the PLA announcement made sense because they did the faithful remake of Diamond and Pearl next to it. So they've done two remakes of essentially the same game, right? They've given us a new game in the past, and they've given us a faithful remake. So to throw Kalos in the mix, especially if we do get a black and white, we do get a faithful remake from black and white, it just doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the only thing that you would say is, like, Kalos is right next to Paldea.
Is it?
And it's right. So you've got this like trifecta of almost. You've got Galar, which is the UK. You've got France, which is Kalos, and attached to France, like down on this side, is Paldea.
Yeah.
The grayed out area of the map in Paldea?
Yeah.
That's connected to Kalos, so I don't know, mate. I don't know. But there's some wild theories going around at the minute, so we'll see what comes of everything. But I don't know if overcomplicating it helps the situation where it might not be that complicated. Because if you look at face value of Scarlet and Violet, you can go deep into loads of theories with that. But it's very straightforward, the story with how it works and what the hidden treasure of Area Zero is. There's not really too much to it.
I think the complication comes from people just speculating and wanting more. I think realistically it is a Pokemon game, and they could, they do a lot of this cool stuff. There's no reason why it can't happen. I just think it won't all happen, and it will definitely happen in a way that we won't expect, because I just think it's hilarious. And I think, given the fact that they did do it, the curveball that they threw us, I don't think it's going to be anything like what we expect. Anything we can imagine, I don't think. I just don't think, until we get footage and actually know, some solid concrete evidence of what it's going to be like. I just don't think anyone's.
It's going to be interesting to see what the gameplay is like for it. Like
again, that's what it comes back to. Like, I think they deliberately didn't show any gameplay for that reason. They're just trying to keep you on your toes. It might be that we don't get any gameplay for a while. It depends on when the game comes out next year. You know, it might not be. I mean, it'd be a bit of shit if we had to wait till next Pokemon Day, but I doubt it would have to wait that long. But you know,
Do you reckon we get something at Worlds maybe for it?
possibly that would make a lot of sense.
Maybe.
I think it all depends on what they do with the announcement of the next console.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's all
presents
on
in
that.
August, right? It's normally like early August time. No, is it June? June time we maybe get a presents.
I think we will probably get another present maybe in April, because they didn't do anything with Worlds, right? They didn't announce anything. They normally give us dates for Worlds, and you know, it's just other artwork and stuff like that on Pokemon Day.
Yeah.
What's probably going to happen is we'll probably get another present in April or May. Probably maybe end of April we'll get another one. Or they might do something at UIC, but I very much doubt it.
But then again, their hype cycles haven't been that strong. Like for Scarlet and Violet, they didn't do a lot of in the run up to it. They didn't do a lot of advertising. We had very sparse information about those games before they came out. It wasn't like a crazy every month we got something new to sort of build up the hype of it. But it might be different. If your theory is right and it is a launch title for the new Switch console, I'd say
they'd have to hype it up.
The hype season will probably be a lot better, so we'll probably get a lot more. But it all kind of hinges on. And
I think at the moment they just want the mystery.
All of that.
They want to keep the mystery, but it's like, how do they keep us engaged? And I think that ultimately comes down to when they next tease us and when they plan to launch it alongside. If they do plan to launch it, do they launch it against a new console?
And I hope as well that they're not pressured to be oh, we need to get this game footage out by this date. I think if they're going into it with a bit more of a relaxed attitude, be we'll be able to do this.
It comes out when it when it comes out.
It comes out when it's finished, rather than be this date is when it has to come out, so you have to get it done by then. So I
wonder if they've basically said that they've given themselves a window of between, I don't know, January and November last year, and they've gone, okay, as long as it comes out at least a year before Gen 10 comes out, it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah,
because they've probably
maybe then we don't. Depending on if this is a main series title, we might not get Gen 10 for another 2 years.
But that might not be a bad thing. It depends on this game.
Would be.
If it means that we actually get really good Pokemon. Not that Pokemon games have been bad, but if we get really polished Pokemon games, I don't mind waiting. They've got enough. They're smart enough to fill the gaps with VGC. There's loads of different things. You know, if it does completely change, I'm sure there's ways they can make the format's more interesting. You know, they can do loads. There's a plethora of different rules they could do. You know, if we are stuck with a game for 3 years, you know, I think people are just getting too hung up on that.
And for the casual fans as well, you know, those are not into competitive, there's going to be, we talked about it, they've got easy wins to fill gaps, like the virtual console, porting games, the old games.
100%. 100%.
So much time for that, gives them so much breathing space, so they could easily do that, you know. I think it's an easy win for them. And people would go mad for it. Imagine, we were talking about it being, I think that releasing them as standalones on the eShop. But imagine if you could go out and
buy a case,
red, blue, and yellow.
Oh, that'd be mad.
As a cartridge, and it'd be people would go nuts for that. So they've got easy wins to be able to do that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think we're all safe, and I think all of these changes, although they might be daunting, scary, I think they're going to be positive ones. And if they don't work, right? If they don't work, they fall flat on their face. Then at least they're trying.
They tried, yeah.
And they can always then go back to whatever the formula that was before that worked.
Exactly.
People will then be happy with that, right? They'll get a win with that one. So there's no losing in this situation. I think it's all positive and exciting going forward with it all, mate. But yeah, expectation levels, as always, were through the roof yesterday. I think, what did I say at one point? I was like, okay, so I'm expecting a black and white remake. I would love a Legends game, and I want the virtual consoles ported to the Switch. Those three things, I'm crazy. When you look back and you think, wow, you were asking for all that, and that was a minimum ask from myself. But I think it was all these. I think it really puts into context, listening to the noise is not always the best thing to do, because how many times have we heard over the last month, over the last few weeks, that there was a leak confirming from reliable leakers that there was 2 games going to be confirmed at the Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day. 2 games are going to be confirmed, and then other leakers be like, it's 100% going to be a black and white game. It's 100% going to be a Johto game, and playing off what all the speculation that Pokemon were probably trolling in a way, but maybe not. Maybe they were just celebrating the fact that it is Johto's anniversary and they just wanted to make something of Johto, knowing that they weren't doing a game. So they're putting in as much Johto references here, there, and everywhere as they can to be like, hey, we're celebrating these regions, but we haven't got anything to really do and development like wise with it. So I think don't listen to the noises. There's just wait for it, because I think we've all been shown up here a little bit with all of these rumors going so crazy the last.
Yeah, I think you know, a lot of probably rumor spreaders should probably be a bit ashamed, maybe, with some of their over optimism, and if they are saying things like "I guarantee," then I think that should be affecting your credibility there. As much as I'm all for getting excited, but you can't just be like,
yeah, I love a good rumor.
You got to take ownership for your wrongdoings.
I think a lot of them, like some of them have done. Obviously, I think Pyro's a really reliable leaker. Obviously, someone in the know that it gets a lot of pretty much everything that they say right came out before. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't say stuff or anything like that, so don't get me wrong on this, but they came out when they said there was, I think, a mention last year that they heard about a black and white Ilka project or a remake project, and this was last year, but they were saying take it with a grain of salt. And then they came out afterwards, and the first thing they said was, yeah, happy to take the L on this one. 100% track record's kind of gone now, but you know, I don't think it is, because I think beforehand they saying, you know, take this with a grain of salt. It was just something that I heard. I don't think they were pegging much on it, but just sharing it just because it was something that they'd heard along the line. Whereas other
well, there's also right.
Coming out and saying, yep, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be this, and then getting everyone's hopes up, and then that's what spoils the presents in a way, because it's like that expectation went from a normal level where you're maybe expecting a new game at best to expecting 2, 3, 4 new games. Well, not 4, but you know, with the virtual consoles and stuff like that, your expectations are just too high when they're already stretched with Scarlet and Violet that we've plainly seen over the last 2 years since its release. I'm
happy with what we got from the presents, like as a main takeaway. The fact that we've got,
I haven't had the chance to be like, what was your thoughts on
happy,
it overall, mate?
Happy.
Yeah, happy with it.
I think the longer development time, the fact that it might come along with a new launch alongside a new console, the fact that we're getting Megas back, a big fan favorite. You know,
I could tell when you mentioned the Megas, it was like your eyes sparkled, lit up at that. I knew you'd be happy with that. That's really nice.
I just think, I don't know, people obviously have their opinions, but I think Megas for a lot of people was quite fondly looked upon. I know it had its issues, but I just think, you know, it was a straightforward gimmick, relatively straightforward, you know, and I think that's why people liked it. It was unique, you know. We got slightly different. You got a chance to give these. Granted, they didn't do it they missed out a lot of Pokemon that people rightly feel like they should have given Mega Evolutions to, but it gave a lot of Pokemon that maybe didn't get a lot of attention in the past. It gave them the opportunity to have, you know, a bit more of the limelight. So, you know, and I almost guarantee that we're probably going to get some Kalos Megas. I really don't want to see Mega Incineroar as well, despite what people have been saying.
No, I think that one for me, I'm like, yeah, just leave it as it is. It'd probably make it worse, though, I think.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know, because, you know, you give it Intimidate, and then it depends on what its second ability is. But no, I just think it's a cool gimmick. I liked it. You know, you knew that the Pokemon had to hold the Mega Stone, so you know they weren't holding it. I mean, we see the items now, so it's a bit different, but at least in the past,
cool though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool. I guarantee we'll probably get some. I wonder if we'll get like more Johto Pokemon getting Mega Evolutions. You know, normally they always do the big gimmicks for the Kanto Pokemon, but they kind of did all the Kanto Pokemon the first time around with X and Y and Oris, right? Or a lot of them. There is a few that you could still give them to, but they have give love to those Pokemon in you know, Sword and Shield and in Scarlet and Violet as well. There is a few there. You could say maybe like Arbok could be one, Snorlax could be one. that we could see. But I think it would be nice to give a big nod to like Johto and be like, okay, well, this is the time where we see a few of you. I mean, we have got Mega Tyranitar already, but there's like Skarmory that could get a Mega Evolution. What's to say the Eevees couldn't, you know, the Evolutions couldn't get Mega Evolutions? That would be so hype, you know? So there's a few things that they could do if they go down like an Umbreon and Espeon route. It's very exciting just thinking of the possibilities, though. Like you say, I think it gives like this whole new lease of life to these maybe like, you know, not so common popular Pokemon that you would love to see kind of have a bit more time in the spotlight. So yeah, very exciting.
No, it's good. It's good as well. Yeah, I'm just, like I said, excited, but kind of just want to forget about it until we sort of know more information, because, like I said,
it's so far away, isn't it?
It could potentially be. I say, you know, it'll come around soon enough, but until we know more, until we get more information teased, it's just like, oh, we just have to wait. We just got to wait for the goodness. But no, I don't. What were your final thoughts? Were you sort of similar thoughts to mine about the presents as an overall?
I have to look at this. What I said before it started, I said these exact words. I think I said, if we get a Legends game of any sort, I'm going to be really happy. And
I remember you saying that. Yeah, we got one.
So I'm like, I can't, like, yeah. And I think overall, right, I think the TCG app, it took up a lot of time in the thing, but it's a pretty big deal. I think it looks quite exciting. We got all the other standard things that we get in the presents, which, you know, have to be there because there's fans of all the other facets of this franchise. And I think the fact that we got such a curveball makes it that much better for me personally, because I really enjoyed it, mate. I think it was a really good presents. I can see where the disappointment is. The only thing that I'm disappointed in is that we still are waiting for the classic games to be ported to the Switch, and I just feel like, when are you going to do that? I just felt like it was such a good time to do it yesterday.
Okay, maybe they're just holding it in their arsenal.
Maybe
depending on the release schedule.
Waiting till later this year or sometime to do it, but I just feel with bank closing down at some point in the near future, it's such an easy win for them, and it's such a like, everyone wants to see it happen, and it would be such a missed opportunity, I feel, for them not to port these older games. And it's such an easy thing for them to do, right? Like, you've got a product that people want to give you money for, but you're just not providing it, right? It's such an easy thing for them to do. I just think, come on, just give us it. So that would be my only thing where it's a bit like, I am a bit disappointed about that, because I just feel like I don't want all these other GBA games.
How cool would it be? This is never gonna happen, but I was just had this wishful thought come into my head. If they re-released the games in the same, like, for the original consoles, right? But they put like a chip in them that actually allowed you to transfer them over properly to whatever game it was. So
what do you mean?
So you'd have, like, they would re-release, say, Pokemon Emerald, but for the GBA. So it'd be a GBA cart, but because Bank's gone or whatever, they put something else in the cartridge or in the game that allows you to send it to the Switch or to home. I don't think it would happen. I just think the idea of them re-releasing like the original, because they're going to limit themselves if they do that, right? Because the consoles are expensive. But I just think if they did I just think it would be a cool idea. I don't know how else they could incorporate it. Maybe, like I said, maybe if they just re-released physical cartridges that run on the Switch, it'd be cool. But
I think that's
don't know.
the easiest way for this to do it. I mean, the other way you could look at it, if we're looking at this fantastical route, which I do love that idea, but you could have on the Switch successor, it could have, like, who's to say they don't?
Oh, if it had a port.
A DS port, a GBA port, and a GB port. All of these.
I'm telling you now, if they did that, I think that would sell the console on its own. I don't think you'd need anything else. If I could put an original game cart.
Yeah. Oh, bro. I mean, they've got to be looking at, like, these products like this I've been using loads. The GB operator, right? Or you look at the analog pocket. Like, they're popular items. People still want to play physical cards, right? So they could have those. They could do it. They've done it in previous consoles before. We had on the DS, the original one. You had the GBA slot. You had the DS Lite with the GBA slot. They've done it multiple times, so maybe it's something they could do. It would be very exciting if they did it.
Bro, you can be excited now.
The DS slot, GBA, and GB slot. That's what you need.
They could literally have one slot that did everything.
And it would be a lot harder to do it for like, you know, GameCube and stuff like that. But
it would be such a unique selling point. Like, I really want that now.
And then for those that don't have the physical cards, they can still buy them on the eShop to have the digital version. So that's how they cover it. Yeah, I would love to see it. Do it, Nintendo.
I would flip the shit if they have a universal slot. Oh my god.
Do you imagine? It would make a lot of sense. Like I say, like there's these other companies out there now that are making bank of these sort of products, and you know, I think they're great, but they're filling a gap in the market that's there, and Nintendo owns all of the rights to this original IP that they've got, and you know, just do it.
It would destroy it. Like, yeah, for retro gaming, it would revive retro gaming.
Yeah, it would. And it would be such a crazy talking point as well. It would give it such a huge advantage over any Steam Deck. You just be like,
that's what I mean. Like, yeah. So,
you know, and you're playing on a original like hardware, which is, you know, crazy to think that. But
then they could, like, it's another. Sorry, we're diving deep into this. It's another money revenue, right? Because then they could just re-release all the old games. And they could just, you could just buy, because for people that don't have them, like, imagine you could go out and buy like I just said, like the car, like a GBA car, right? Imagine walking into Game or like HMV or Target or wherever the hell you go to buy your games, and then walking over to the side and they've got like an original like GBA box with like a GBA car on it, and they're like. It would just tick so many. It's like the nostalgia, right? They love to play with people's nostalgia, and I think that would just, I think would make it so good. I want to stop talking about it because I know we're not going to get it. So it's just making me sad. It's not going to happen. Yeah. There's no way it's not going to happen. But
it's too I think it's too fanciful to think that they're gonna they'd be able to, like,
unless they put it on the dock. Unless they put it on the dock or something rather than actually put it on the console. Yeah. Because then at least you've got an option, you know, similar to how you could play Game Boy games on the GameCube.
Yeah, Game Boy player. Yeah, that's a good shout. Like a dock extension that sits, the dock sits on, and it's got all the ports there.
That's probably a more likely. I think that's probably a more likely scenario than having an all-encompassing slot. Yeah. But yeah, who knows? Cool. We will see. But it's been nice to catch up on the pod. I think we've pretty much. I don't think there's much else to cover really, unless we could spiral talking about all this stuff for ages.
Deep down the rabbit hole. Maybe we have a special episode about the possibilities of what we could see on the new Switch to make it stand out as best as possible and cater to Pokemon more than anything, because that's all we're doing. Like, Nintendo is blinkered by our Pokemon only thoughts, but yeah. No, mate, I think that's it. It's been absolutely amazing to finally get back with the pod after such a long time, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year and continuing our journey through with some more specialized episodes, and then we'll drop in with these ones as and when we've got some more juicy content to talk about.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say, or is that it? Should we sign off?
We'll just say thanks for tuning in. If you've listened on YouTube, do drop us a like, do leave us a sub down below, and a comment as well, just to let us know if there's any specific topics you'd like to see us talking about. We will be putting episodes out more regularly now going forward, and they'll be looking at more specific topics within the Pokemon franchise, which is going to be very exciting going forward. Like I say, we'll be keeping up with the news drops and things like that are relevant at the time as and when they drop. But if you've got anything you would like us to talk about specifically, it'd be great to share those, and we'll see if we can fit them in. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, do leave us a review. It really, really does help. And any feedback, of course, is always appreciated, because we're here to keep improving having a good time talking everything Pokemon. But that's it from me. I just want to say thanks to everyone, and thanks in particular to you, my man. I've got to get the direction right if I can. Yeah, there you are. There you are. There you are. But yeah.
No worries. No, thank you very much for joining me. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to the people that have been asking for the podcast to come back. I know on these streams they've particularly been the support, and you know it's nice to see that people wanted it to come back. So yeah, like Lee said, we might not necessarily be doing this specific type of podcast episodes like every week, but we have some great ideas for content moving forward. So stay tuned. Good things to come, man. So we will see you guys in the next video, whatever it ends up being. Goodbye.
Bye bye.